Alrighty, and we're recording. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to my channel. I'm Justice Graves, and we are here to talk about the title of this video, The Core of the Problem. But before we get started, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and that you join my locals. There's a ticker at the bottom, and there will be graphics that are displayed periodically during the video today. Join and follow me on Twitter at J.J.H. That is at JusticeJHG on Twitter, and you can go and be a free, or if you are willing to, being a paid member of my locals community, but it is always free to join and see the content that I post, and my locals is justicegraves.locals.com. That is justicegraves.locals.com. Now, let's get right into what I want to do with the video, but first, some housekeeping. It's been a while since I've done a pre-recorded video, and it's been a while since I've done any sort of updates on the channel in general. So we're going to get started. I have a new microphone. I'm doing some new stuff. You probably noticed if you were watching the stream that I did yesterday, I'm going to do another stream tonight. I'm used to doing streaming, but now I'm doing it with OBS, which is why there's new stuff going on with regards to my background and the ticker at the bottom and all this sort of other good, fun, and exciting stuff. So hopefully that is exciting. On the other side of that, I didn't just get a new microphone, but I also got, for some stuff that will be exclusive on my locals, I have a new document camera. I used it to sort of just go over some stuff with some friends the other day, and do a video just sort of going through my thoughts on certain things. So, and it works really well. It has some really good, I expect to get some pretty good use out of this, so if you want to see some exclusive stuff on my locals, I'm going to be using the document camera almost exclusively on locals for different things. On top of what I normally do on my locals anyway with my different posts and updates. But that is where we are right now. So that's just sort of my housekeeping. Let's kind of get more into what is this video about. This video is, of course, like all my other videos, about education. And this video is actually not an original video that I've done. I mean, it is an original video, but this is sort of a retelling of a video. I made this video on this topic, the core of the problem, months ago. This is sort of a retelling of it. It isn't public on my channel. Back then, I was a school committee member, and I only wanted to share it with a small group of friends because it was school committee related stuff. It could have, I wanted to sort of keep that under the radar on that. But I wanted to sort of talk stream of conscious on some stuff that I had noticed when I heard the concept of that instead of communities getting around churches, we were now gathering around school buildings. And that really struck a nerve. Well, not struck a nerve, but that really sort of hit home for me, recognizing, some of the different implications of that. For example, people used to go to church in order to meet people, in order to meet their friends, in order to go and, see each other, go for a mass, and then go out and do the rest of their day. People used to not do work on Sundays. And nowadays, and I'm not saying that all things around the church are positive. I'm religious, but I am very critical of the church. What I also have to say is that now we've all moved to, you vote in the high school cafeteria, the high school gym. We all have our meetings and stuff at, town meetings and stuff in the high schools. We all have public events and fundraisers, and all this other stuff is all happening at the high school, at the middle school, at the elementary schools in our communities. And what that has done is that has forced our culture from being in the town square into being in the campus square of these high school, elementary school, and middle school campuses. And in some cases where you have places like, if we're talking about Lowell, if we're talking about Amherst, if we're talking about Boston, we're talking about how, members of the community are also gathering and sort of forming around these universities and colleges. So that's happening a lot as well. This doesn't just apply to, gathering around the church, gathering around the school building. It's gathering around the church, gathering around the university is also extremely important when we're talking about this. And I'm going to go through a bit of a presentation to just sort of go through what I mean about this. about why that is a problem and why I call it the core of the problem. I am going to switch over in just a bit so that I can show you some of what I'm talking about. So, little presentation, core of the problem. Having been on a school committee, what I'll tell you is that, you know, this is the very basic structure that you're looking at on screen. You have your elected and selected, you're not elected, and then that school is sort of, think of it kind of like a jawbreaker, where you have these inner layers and then you have these outer shells that sort of coat over it and that are very hard and enamel-like. You have the district as an entity itself, the college and the university shielding these people who make certain decisions, and it's really a combination of school board plus superintendents, chancellors, and etc. and other types of administration. But when you get down to it, I was not on the correct thing when I did that. You know, let's kind of go through what we've been sort of experiencing for the last year with what people have, you know, major influencers have been sort of extrapolating and pushing as the method by which we should deal with the situation on high school and college campuses with regards to critical race theory and social emotional learning. You know, parents should be protesting at public meetings. It's sort of like, you know, as some people say, it's sort of like a pep rally, but it's also really just a good hype up, good for hyping up the crowds. But relatively speaking, the school district shields the elected and non-elected officials from what that can look like, because it's the school committee's meetings that they're at. And the school committee can say, we're not going to let you speak if we don't want you to. You have these FOIA requests. A lot of people locally I know have been trying to do this, but generally speaking, that doesn't get to the heart of the problem. It can show and sort of expose what's going on, but that doesn't necessarily translate into any formative action or any type of, you know, moving of the needle when it comes to the type of indoctrination that's going on in these places. And that's something that I cover a lot on the channel. I'm going off of the assumption that you already understand all of that stuff just to sort of make this video a lot easier on me. Elections, to get rid of those people in the core, it takes a lot of time. They're on staggered terms, and incumbents have a lot of weight. Homeschooling alone and collaboratives, they start to take away and peel off that layer of protection that the school district, with the parents, teachers, and students sort of gives it. And I do highlight at the bottom here that parents, teachers, and students are a part of this outer core, because they are often used. If you listen to how school committee meetings and such are run, it's done in such a way that they're sort of used as a shell, they're sort of used as a barrier, they're sort of used as a defense mechanism. Don't criticize, you know, the hardworking parents that support us, you know, they need that childcare option. Or don't go after the teachers, this is their life's passion. Don't, you know, of course this is their life's passion, why else would they get these degrees? Oh, please don't go after our other staff, don't go after our other faculty, don't go after the students, because the students know best. And they don't know best, but that's the running logic that some of these officials, both elected and non-elected, will use. Well, the students know best, the students know students best. Of course, I will tell you from sort of the reaction to me going on to school committee, you know, at the age of 22, was that, you know, lead up to that was, oh, we need student experience, we need people who really respect the students. And then, you know, I walk in, oh, you know, I'm only 22, blah, 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 you know, understand a little bit about it. And it go, you know, and then a student speaks out, or a former student speaks out and says, hey, this is going to be awesome, like a little bit of a younger person's going to be on there. And then everyone else is like dead silent and just doesn't want to talk about it. This also happened at several meetings when I was on the school committee at Narragansett, where it would be one moment we need to listen to the students, and then the next moment it was, it's about what we want, and it's just sort of that subtle transition. So again, students, parents, and administrators, or in other types of administrators like principals who are not higher up on the administrative totem pole, even though they're sort of not there, maybe they should be in that purple area on there. They're useful up to a point, and then they're sort of used as a collective shield. But yeah, peeling that away by getting those people away from those institutions, but that doesn't always work super well, because remember, just like how you can homeschool your kids to stop them from being indoctrinated, it also means that people can take their kids and indoctrinate them. Although this is America, and I will say that you have the right to be indoctrinated or not indoctrinated the way that you choose. You have the right to be religious or not religious in the way that you choose, as long as it does not affect other people. And by that I mean clearly violating the personal rights of others, personal private rights of others, or that is a active threat with violent consequences on people. Scandals take time, and they're really not that effective. It's kind of just like the school committee meetings. They're just really good at pumping people up that, action is about to take hold. Teachers quitting and refusing to teach the dogma. Sometimes this works, sometimes this doesn't. It does peel off that purple layer that we're seeing on this sort of jawbreaker-like structure. The problem is that sometimes these teachers don't have the means and the methods, because the way that we view teachers and this is a culture in the United States, we view public school teachers as sort of in this protected area, that they are above reproach in a certain sense. But when they don't have employment and they're trying to do things like tutoring and they're trying to do stuff like that, they're subject to the types of pressures and conditions that a normal capitalistic society would permit. Although it's actually a little bit more extreme, because you have such a small portion of people who want outside teachers' information. There's also the stigma that if you are a teacher who didn't make it to retirement or didn't successfully leave an institution peacefully, that you're somewhat of a troublemaker and you shouldn't be trusted. We have a really big problem in this country with, we used to be a country of liking underdogs, but we have a real big problem now of respecting those who speak out about issues and then walk away and try and create institutions. Most of the time we inappropriately call those people grifters. There are people who are grifters in society. That is not a debate that I really need to have. That is my personal opinion, and I do believe that there are grifters and people who sort of abuse the spotlight to get money purely for the benefit of getting money with very little cultural impact, positive cultural impact. But what's happening with regards to this is that, people see these teachers sort of as grifting in another way. So that doesn't have all of the types of consequences and positives that one would think. And again, collaboratives are a lot more stronger of a homeschooling way, of homeschooling method. And this applies to both public and private universities, because this is public and private universities and public and private high schools and schools, districts. Because, as I've been talking about with regards to ARPA, the CARES Acts in general, is that private schools are getting money to do this woke stuff as well. So they're not immune, and we actually see a lot more pervasive SEL and critical race theory and critically responsive learning and teaching in private institutions as opposed to the public institutions. So just bear that in mind. And I use the strawbreaker analogy to sort of highlight how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. There's many more layers to it than just that inner layer, because think about what's also protecting the school district as an entity. We're talking about the government itself imposing rules and regulations that empower them. We're talking about local municipalities that rely on them for a service. Nonprofits and businesses interact with school districts. They get hirees from these places or colleges or universities, and so they have an incentive to support them to get better workers for their enterprises. But also because these are hubs that allow, these are common hubs that everybody does, because in the United States education is compulsory, that nonprofits can go set up shop there, and everyone knows where the local auditorium is for the local high school. And everybody knows where the local activity center is for the local college or university. Same thing with different types of other commissions and stuff. It behooves them to use these facilities, because it's like, well, we can't afford to have our own facilities for basketball, and we can't have our own facilities for field hockey or all this other stuff. So let's just go and use what the school district's got, or rely on the school district for those outside activities and events. instead of focusing on community and bringing people around the grandstands and the gazebos and the bandstands of the inner town and of the town center and of the town square and of the city square and of the city center. People are really getting away from that. And my biggest, when we kind of look at this issue as a layered jawbreaker, you got to peel off these layers, get rid of them one by one. It's going to take time, but you have to take activities away from the public schools. Now, what I'm going to show you, I'm going to actually sort of explain and sort of talk a little bit as opposed to just sort of leaving this on screen. I'm going to leave this on screen for a minute, but I'm going to talk about what people should really start to focus on. And that is that people should focus on building community. And to build community, you need to go and bring people back to the centers of your town. I don't agree with putting things back into churches. I know I used that analogy, that idea of that we took the center of community around from churches and we put it into school districts. We need to put that back into its proper place, which is the center of town, and then in the center of cities, and in these central locations in villages and in boroughs. Because we need to focus on bringing people together. A lot of people have a lot of different religions that they practice. A lot of people have a lot of different faiths. But one thing that people can get together for is a common, non-polarized location. And that should be your green spaces in your town squares and in your city squares. If a group of them want to branch off and have more community over at the local, senior center or at the local, church that's also in the center, because a lot of churches do happen to be in the center of places, of cities and towns, that's fine. But the base of where everything should be is the center of town, not necessarily in the church, not necessarily in the school buildings. And we should focus on that. It's difficult because school districts, because we have also put in that they need to do sporting events as well, which, having worked as a staff member in the, for a Division I school in the NCAA and for track and field and cross country, and also having been a high school athlete, I'm actually more of the opinion now as I've gotten older that school districts, and high schools in particular, shouldn't have athletics programs, because not that there shouldn't be ways to oversight that activity, but because schools do it wrong. And because it makes it more politically charged and tied in with school politics than it ever should have been. Naturally, when you put something into the hands of a school committee, they are, for all intents and purposes, a body politic. Boards of trustees, not quite a body politic, but you can sort of, they're in charge in a certain sense in terms of the executive level with policy and higher order decision making. So that's why it is so important to really recognize that fact as things move on. The other thing I kind of want to mention in all of this is there are a lot of commissions and local nonprofits that are not doing well because people aren't volunteering. People are disincentivized. There's a lot of open positions for different things in local communities that, quite frankly, if you have any time, any free time to do something, you should volunteer and donate of your time to make your communities a better place, whether that be in smaller committees and whether that be in smaller nonprofits, because that also builds community, and then you can be in the room and be in charge of where things happen so that you can pull things away from the school districts. And I say this as a private citizen every day of the week, that is the best way to handle this. It is not a good idea, really, to do it any other way, because you're not getting into the focus of, we have everything at our local colleges and universities. Are there variants of these ideas that are going to work great? Probably. Are there new, interesting, methodologies or different ways of collaboration that may also be successful? I'm going to say yes, but I don't know that yet. And more importantly, we haven't had a full-on debate, conversation, deliberation, dialectic, what have you, to flesh out what those better ideas for community would be, because we're so focused on the centralization with the schools. I believe a decentralized approach to this is also the best way, and I also personally believe that decentralized schooling is a better future than whatever this is turning into. There really is, and I say this as a former school committee member, but also as a private citizen, that you can't do much with these. Naturally, when you have a board or a committee in charge of an entire institution, there will be centralization. Naturally, when you do not, and naturally that happens, if you have a state board of education, they're going to centralize education in the state. Every single state has a state board of education. Local control isn't really as big of a thing, and we saw that throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, that local control wasn't a true factor. A lot of places did, people think that choice is what type of form or disclosure form that you have and what the words are on the page for that. That's not choice. That's you being backed into a corner and trying to overregulate something. What is choice is being able to say, are we going to go yes on this pathway, or are we going to go no on this pathway? Are we going to do this, or are we not going to do this? Not, the state tells us to do something, so we're going to choose whichever pretty form or whatever pretty paper that we want to get the things done that we want to get done, or that the state tells us that we need to do. That's just my 2 cents on that. But I hope that makes sense. I hope that this video was informative. I am going to sort of wrap this up. I don't want this to be longer than 25 minutes. I just wanted to sort of try and get back into the swing of things. Again, you can follow me on Twitter and on Locals. Again, my Twitter is @JusticeJHG, @JusticeJHG, and it has been rolling in the ticker at the bottom for the whole time. And my Locals is justicegraves.locals.com. That is justicegraves.locals.com. And on top of all of that, please, 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 like, share, subscribe. This content, post this wherever you see fit. Talk to your neighbors about this kind of stuff. I don't care if you show them this video. Just have these types of conversations with people to get the needle moving in the other direction, away from wokeness and authoritarian control. That is all I have for you today. I really appreciate all of you who will watch this video, and that's all I have. Trying to end this in a really strong note here. Take care and have a good rest of your day whenever you're watching this. Bye.